And so I've got Andy Carlucci on my right, and Andy is from Zoom, and he may be the busiest guy at the show except for Alex Lindsay, who's next to me. I want them each to tell you a little bit about what they're doing at the show, and then we'll jump into some of the ways Zoom can help creators. So Andy, your turn.
Sounds good. Well, great to see all of you. Hope the show's going well. It's been very active for us this weekend. A whole lot of different things happening over on the Zoom side. We have new integrations, our new Zoom Workplace powered by AI, and great partners that we're supporting here at the show as well. So just some top of mind things for us this year. We've made some pretty significant upgrades to our flagship production tools, including Zoom ISO, which allows us to extract the individual video and audio feeds from Zoom at HD and export them to third-party systems over protocols like NDI, SDI, and now Symfony 2110 as well through Blackmagic Desktop Video. A lot of interesting announcements from Blackmagic, and we fit right into that ecosystem through the Decklink IP devices. We have a new app as well that we've created called Tiles. And Tiles allows us to create customized gallery views out of our Zoom audience so that we can display them in hybrid events or bring them into our live streams with more bespoke branding and customization. Now, we're also super excited to be introducing our Pro AV technology into our Zoom Rooms product. And that allows us to accept the professional formats like NDI and SDI, as I mentioned, directly into Zoom Rooms appliances to be able to connect basically on-prem infrastructure with our cloud. And we also have a really robust family of developer integrations, some of whom are here today. And we're really excited to announce that Ecamm Live is joining our platform, our developer ecosystem, and they have an integration that'll be available to you later this month. You can check it out at ecamm.com/Zoom. So a lot of interesting movement on our side, and we're trying to keep up with all of it, but it's been great.
Okay, so unpack. So this Tiles at a customized gallery, does that mean if I'm putting on a show, I customize that look? Or,
the thing that we've heard people getting tired about is the grid, right? Like they put Zoom up on screen and they see a static grid, and that's kind of, they're inheriting our aesthetic from our software directly. And instead, we wanted to give tools that allow you to create something more customized, more in line with the branding and the feel. And we wanted to do it in a way that wasn't terribly complicated either, with media servers and all those things piled on top of each other to get it done. So Tiles has a simple user interface that allows you to define, I want, drop shadows and rounded corners and custom border colors and backsplashes, and this is how many people I want on screen, and be able to export that still to professional equipment, but do so in a much easier way.
Is that for Zoom events or Zoom meetings or webinars or everybody?
So be able to connect to all of it. It's part of our Zoom events platform. So you sign into it as a hub host, and then you get access to all the features. We'll be making it available soon in an open beta to go try out.
Okay. One other thing before I move on. I know that you have talked a lot about your Fortnite announcement. I know you made it a while ago, but for the creator community, they got kind of excited about this.
Yes.
What are you doing with Fortnite?
Well, Unreal Engine, which is sort of behind all the tools that Epic Games creates, is really exciting for us because not only is it used for video game development, it's used for industrial pre-visualization, it's used in education, it's used in live events and virtual production as well. So being part of that platform allows us to extend into all those different areas of development, and we actually have it running over at Alex's booth. We have Zoom participants coming into Unreal Engine, and we've displayed them in a customized view that allows us to have a interaction in a 3D environment directly from inside of Unreal Engine. So we made that available on March 25th. Any developer can go download it for free. And we'll be announcing tomorrow that the project that we used for our Zoomtopia conference back in November will be available to everybody to download starting tomorrow as well on our website. So you'll be able to see the exact project that we use for our own events, pick it apart, figure out what makes sense for you, and use it as
that's the Unreal Engine based.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. Okay, so you heard it here first. Tomorrow you're all Unreal Zoom Unreal or Unreal
Exactly.
Zoom developers. But so now you're going to tell us, Alex, what we're going to see in your booth, because it's become a centerpiece of the show.
It's actually pretty exciting. So so we're in the central hall, so office hours, I've been covering events for 20 years, and office hours over the last 2 years has been really trying to find ways. And rather than just doing the way you cover events, we just started experimenting, like how do we do this? And one of the things that was really important was how do we create something that has people that are not here really feel like they're part of the event? And we started experimenting. A lot of it, we're just throwing things up against the wall, of let's try this and let's try that. And there's a couple key pieces to it. One is we want experts that aren't constrained by time and space to be able to be part of the conversation. And so when we do that, that means we're using Zoom to basically have people from all over the world. Today, we had a booth. In our booth, we had Unreal Engine with Zoom running. And then we built you have to come over to just to see the camera. But the camera is this Franken camera. We have an FX6, Sony FX6. So we have FR7s all through the booth, which are the best PTZ cameras. And then you have the FX6s, and we tied in two-way, high quality, use Vislink connections to the camera so that if you're watching the camera, if you're at the camera anywhere in the central hall, you see a Zoom room. You basically see a Zoom there, and you're hearing them in an IFB. So you're able to we can walk up, and instead of me interviewing like this, back and forth, where you are a third party as the viewer, I literally just introduce Robin and then step away and let them just talk directly. And no one's ever done this before, so we didn't know. Like when we started at noon, we were like, we'll see if this works, and it was amazing. I mean, right out, because what you're having is you have people on the floor that are having an intimate conversation with folks that are all over Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Norway, all over the world, and that has allowed the 99.99999% that will never be able to make it to NAB to really feel like they're exploring NAB.
Okay. So Central Hall, where in Central Hall?
It's 5749.
Has anybody been there already?
5749. It's hidden in a little, off one of the little alleyways, but it's pretty center to it. That way we could get wireless connections to the rest of the hall. It
is a super powerful concept. And just from being at a trade show, you all know you're not going to make it to every trade show that you want to be at. There's some that will warrant enough for a personal visit for your various reasons, and there's some that you'll want to experience with a front row seat like you're not there.
And I just want to underline that it is the only platform we can do this in. It's the customization it's what Andy's team works on is the customization of the outputs. So it's not just, this is how this works. It is, I can take those videos, I can put them into 3D. I can take those videos, I can take the individual videos out and deliver them as needed. And all of those tools together is what makes it possible for us to do a broadcast the way we do it.
And we really believe in that open platform, whether it's tools that we're creating or tools that we're integrating with third parties who you're already using. We want to make it as easy as possible, as seamless as possible to get Zoom working in the workflow you're already using versus asking you to change your workflow to accommodate Zoom. Yeah. That's the power of the developers. That's the power of creators, right? Getting operational with the workflows that you're already using.
Yeah. And like you said, something really important, not to let Zoom dictate the look of your event.
Precisely.
We've all been through years of that. And credit to both Alex, who started office hours in the wee hours of the pandemic as a way to bring a community together that was struggling, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple things. I had been doing virtual events for about 10 years. And so I knew that this was going to be a hard time for everyone. And I thought, well, I might be able to save people a little bit of time, and being able to do it. I also didn't know Zoom very well. And I was like, I got to figure this out. There's a bunch of people that are going to call and I better know how to use this. And so I was like, I'll just do it every day until I figure it out. And then people started showing up that were smarter than me in a lot of different places. And then the conversation started getting interesting. And then we now 4 years into it, we haven't missed a day. And
right. Missed a day of programming. And a day of programming is what, 2 hours?
2 hours a day every morning.
2 hours a day, 365 a year?
365, including Christmas. Yeah. So it's really a family. I mean, we have people that are, it really has become, we have 21 volunteers here as part of the booth, so we're all working together to figure all of this stuff out. And it's an amazing, amazing team.
So you should check it out. It's called Office Hours, and yes, it's on every day. You can get the mailing list. And it sits on Zoom, but you have added all these things to make
this gets into the heart of the very symbiotic relationship between, Andy and I talk a lot about what we're doing. So how we handle it is we have Zoom coming in and we're using Zoom ISO. We're pulling out all the videos directly. We can also take the audio out of Dante through Zoom ISO. So we're able to deliver that all into our traditional broadcast system. So it's going into Blackmagic switchers and AJA FSHDRs and all the things that are needed. So we've got a stack of hardware that makes a show. Now that show is driven by other software. We have Universe that's built an interface. We have Isadora that's a brain that talks to all the bits and pieces. We use SPX to do all the graphics. And then all of that, though, is driven by the fact that, Zoom is not only giving us video, but it's giving us tons of information about every user. So because we know who the users are inside of Zoom and Zoom OSC, we can say, I've got these 4 people are going to answer the question, and I know what videos those are in my pipeline because of the information I'm pulling out of Zoom. That's not just audio and video, but all the metadata that I need of that person, so that I can automatically fill a super source without having to do anything explicit. And that has turned our show into something that I think looks very professional, and we just couldn't do it with any other platform.
You also upvote and downvote the questions. You know what the questions are.
I have a platform called Mukana that we built about 10 years ago because I hate listening to people ask questions. So no, I don't mean, I'm not
really,
of course.
It's really a nice guy.
No, I was like, I just want people to I want the questions to be something that people are voting. They get to see what everyone else wants to ask, and they're voting those questions up, and they're part of that conversation. But we also then started building all the tools on the back end to let us manage those. But that is now tied into this whole system. So it's delivering its own metadata about the questions and the panelists and the speakers. That combined with the data that we're getting from Zoom allows us to spit out a show that we have people with, not a lot of technical background able to open up a web page anywhere in the world and run the show.
Yep.
And they don't have to say, oh, I want these people in the super source. They just go super source, and it grabs the people that are appropriate for that show.
It's so important to abstract the complexity, both for the operators as well as for the guests, right? Because I see this a lot where traditional broadcast pipelines ask a lot of the guests. They ask a lot beyond them just being subject matter experts. And the moment they become uncomfortable, and I think we've all seen this, the quality of the interaction, no matter how powerful the platform is that they're coming in over, it degrades. And so for us, the user experience is just as important as the broadcast pipeline. And we've tried to make it so that you don't have to make a choice between whether or not you're going to have a high quality contribution platform with low latency and an easy to use platform for your remote guests, whether they're coming in over phone, browser, native client. We can accept all those different sources and bring them in. And it's a tool they're already used to using. They probably already have it installed, or at least they've heard about it in the last couple of years. So it really improves the conversation, even just subliminally, when they're comfortable being able to participate.
Speaking of subliminally, other known fact, Andy came to Zoom with his company, which was Liminal. And Liminal, I think, has been super effective in kind of integrating with all of the various sources of Zoom life. And because if we all think back, what was just over 2 years ago, Zoom was a lifesaver and a minimally viable way of getting business done during the difficult time. And part of what you brought was a maturation to a system. Why don't you talk about Liminal and sort of how that plays in?
So I'm a theater maker by trade. I'm actually a projection artist.
I thought you were a shrink.
And during the pandemic, as you can imagine, my friends and colleagues in the entertainment industry closed their venues to the world to keep our community safe. And one of the challenges during that moment was how to migrate performance from the stage to the screen. And I downloaded all the major UCaaS telecommunications products at the time, all their developer platforms and tools. And at that time, I found that Zoom was the platform that gave me enough hooks to be able to get in there and be able to customize experience to be able to make this migration. So I started out of just personal need, right? In that moment, that emergency. How do I do theater online and customize the tools that I'm used to using in a theater to make them work with Zoom? Well, what we found was that a lot of the technologies and hooks and things like that we needed for our own problems, everybody else was having the same problem at the same time. So we made those tools available as sort of a software startup. And what we found then was that not only were theater makers able to benefit from this, but event professionals like Alex saw the value in having the individual video and audio feeds, the value of having the, control APIs to be able to get in there and make the modifications. So we were heavily using the APIs and SDKs of Zoom. And eventually it just made the most sense as Zoom was getting more into the events business to work together directly and be able to say, all right, with our industry experience from broadcast, from live events, how do we take that into Zoom directly and amp up the platform in this space? And again, the key to this entire strategy has not just been building good products, but it's been building the developer tools to allow the community to be able to take them forward. It's not just about us making a great product and trying to sell it to you. It's about us integrating with the industry and trying to move the industry forward together by making the same technology that we use to build our own products available to the industry at large.
So now I got to ask you the question, and we've talked about this, that I lose sleep over. So this is the Creator Lab, and we built this part of the show to help new broadcasters and new content creators get their word out. And when you think of the word creator, what do you think about? You think about Instagram, you think about TikTok, you think about YouTube. You don't think about Zoom so much. And yet, when I talk to you guys, you kind of told me I was missing the point. That Zoom is about community, and that's the first thing you need for creators. So help me out here.
I guess what I would say is conversation is about community, and the thing is that, people will say that, content is king. And I will argue every single time that community is king and content is the honeypot. So you use content to bring people in, but you build community. And how do you build community? Is with conversation. And so finding ways to do powerful conversations is really the key. And for a creator, when you can build the content, but that's not building that you got a bunch of followers, but they're not part of a community. And the community will work with you. Will, help you generate content. Will help you, support you when you need that support. That's a different interaction than most creators have with their followers. And so what we do all the time, what we're doing with office hours and so on and so forth, we're building this huge community, and we do it on Zoom, every single day. And I think that when you look at your content, the funny thing is that you did all the work with content and then you're leaving a bunch of value behind because they all saw the content. They're all inspired by the content. Now you can talk about the content. And this is the thing about conversation is it actually is a pretty low lift. We just get on every morning. I turn my thing on, a bunch of other people turn it on. We all start talking. I don't have a shot list. I don't have to edit it later. I don't have to do any of those things. And when you do a live stream that has a lot of quality, you're either not going to look great, or it's going to be a lot of work. Content is, but with conversation, we can turn it all on and have that. And then and what's important about Zoom is you can do that in podcasts. But the issue is that when you start to interact with the audience, we see an exponential spike in how long they're watching, how connected they're watching, how much they get out of your original content. And so it's really, really important to think about live interactions, and Zoom is the perfect platform for that.
So do you think everybody's missing an opportunity? I'm talking about the Mr. Beasts and the Adam Carollas and the Casey Neistats to cultivate another part of their creator life.
Well, I think that the distribution platform and the community platform, they don't have to be in opposition to each other. In fact, they can be quite complementary, right? So, and we see this ourselves at Zoom, right? We support multiple third-party platforms for distribution like YouTube and Facebook through our streaming app integration in our app marketplace. You can even stream it in multiple languages as well, right? That's a whole other piece of it, right? The global audience is so much bigger than we think. But I would say that the ability to have that low latency experience, that opportunity for the audience and via their engagement to shape the content of the show creates an investment from that audience in the platform, in the content, in the creator that is just impossible to replicate any other way because they feel like they're part of it. And they are. So I think it's an opportunity to have the network, right? Have the distribution platform, have the YouTube channel, right? Do all those things, but then offer your most engaged, super fans that opportunity to work together with you to craft the content.
And one of the things that you have to be careful of is that it is a completely different muscle. So having that conversation, thinking about things live, is a different way than that. We've had a lot of YouTubers who have a lot of great channels and a lot of followers, but they don't necessarily out of the gate be able to hold their own live because you have to think very quickly on your feet and be able to be articulate about something and so that becomes a challenge. And so, but the only way to get good at it is to do it. There's not a way you can't read a book about how you're going to present and do it. You have to get out there and start doing these, and you don't have to save them for office hours. We didn't save or do any kind of DVR. Well, we did actually. I'd like to think, I don't know if it's a record, but Zoom had a thing where they weren't necessarily throwing away everybody's records. We did record them, and they didn't. And I think at some point it stopped, and they said, "Hey, you have 6 terabytes on Zoom. You might want to take that off." So we did, but we didn't put them out on YouTube. We didn't save them all out because is a work in progress. We were trying to figure out how to do it, and I didn't feel like I was happy to do it live, but I didn't want to necessarily make that a record, and that's a different way of thinking is I'm going to do something live. And so having those conversations allowed it to be very fluid. It also drove a lot of people to be at this. You had to be there or you couldn't get the knowledge. Right. So it was live. There was no DVR. You just experienced it. And then when we got large enough, we were able to then start streaming to YouTube from, so we'd have the conversation in Zoom and then stream to YouTube and then save it there. And the advantage of that is that now we couldn't do it at the very beginning because you want people to be there live so that you can have the conversation. But once it's big enough, because half your viewership it'll drop in half for live because they'll start time shifting what you're doing, but then you can't converse. It's the same number of people. Now on any given day, for our show, it's not a huge show, but it's a very vertical show. These are all professionals in doing what they're doing. We have about 300 to 500 people watch live, and then another 1,000 will watch, over the next week. And that's and it makes an impact. When I walk down the halls, I'm getting interrupted about every 20 feet by somebody who watches our show. And so it definitely has an impact. And, but it took some time to kind of figure that out, and it took a lot of practice. I mean, we're 1,400 shows in now.
Yeah. And it's really an interesting study in conversation. There's more air to breathe. It's not a tick-tock, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to answer this really quickly. There's room for thought. There's a little room for graciousness. The newbies, it's pretty easy to spot a newbie on the channel. And as one, I find my questions answered with respect, and I walk away knowing something. It's really hard to do. And I think, building community, I think the creator industry has to evolve and see this as an opportunity. Let's talk about the monetization part of it. Some of these creators are making a lot of money, with their YouTubes. Are there monetization opportunities on using the Zoom platform?
Yeah, well, I would say that the key is to build the community, and then what you do with that community is at your discretion, right? But what we give you the opportunity to do is to make the engagement and the connection that lets you all come together and build that connection that you can then leverage to great effect. I mean, look at the nonprofit space. I mean, look at content creation in that category and the ability to mobilize a movement that can have social impact. Like, what an incredible tool. And
you just don't want that chicken dinner. They would pay anything not to eat the bad chicken at the dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're right. So what would Mr. Beast do if you had to do a Zoom show? Just a chat with him, right?
Mr. Beast could probably so his understanding of how to build content, now he's pretty protective about that. So he's not, cause he gets tired of people, copying his content, but him sitting around with his crew, just talking about creating one of his things. If he did that every week or whatever for an hour or two and answer some questions, it might break the internet. Because he's really a thinker about those things. And, I've seen him talk and he's really a thinker, and he knows why he does. It's not that he just does something. He knows why he does it. And I think that for a lot, and then what happens is there's one of the fastest ways to monetize is the charge for that community. So if you're charging people, let's say $10 a month or $10 a year or whatever that is, it's a small amount for some of us, but for Mr. Beast, it could be another $10 million a year. To do, and all I guarantee that if Mr. Beast decided he would do a live stream every Saturday afternoon for 2 hours, he would make $10 million a year, more than he's making right now with a membership that's $10 a month. It would, and I'm being very conservative. It could be much higher than that.
And by the way, Mr. Beast won't be here, but Mark Hustaville will be here tomorrow. And word is that he really regrets a lot of the videos he's made and would like to redo them and thinks there's a lot wrong with them, in particular, the frenetic yelling.
Well, and I think that it's also the rat race. You see all these YouTubers saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep on making this content because it's hard to make that content. Conversation, if you get a good set of people. I've been doing what I've been doing for over 4 years. Every single morning, I just get up, make my coffee, I work out, make my coffee, and I get at 7:00. We all have this conversation. Then I go back to what I'm doing for the rest of the day.
Pacific time,
yeah. And so, but the key is that it's not me trying to come up with what's the next thing I'm going to talk. We do have a second hour, which it takes time, but the main thing is that we, having that conversation is such a lower lift. It's not a replacement for doing VOD, but it's a way to provide content to your community without that lift every single time. It can be much more fluid and much more easygoing.
So the conversation's one thing. I know for a while Zoom had the ballet dancers, the magicians. You could set up a store. Is that still there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Magicians continue to surprise me. I see so many different things that happen on the platform. We actually have some SDK developers who build magic tools on top of our platform. And it's just, I find it so fascinating what people enjoy with all of that. Yeah.
We have Sean Does Magic, who has a huge following on YouTube, who will be here. So, all right, I'm going to tell you I want to hear from you in a minute, but my other problem with Zoom, I call it, do you remember Othello? Are you all old enough to remember that game with the white tiles and the black? And their slogan was a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. That's the kind of Zoom user I am. I'm really good at the basics, but my problem is the risk it takes to try something new. There's no green room. I used to call my family and say, could you all get on and use this card playing app or this fortune telling or this polling and see if it works? There's no way with lower stakes to try some of the things. And there's no way to sort of surface, you kind of wish there was an AI that said, why don't you try this? And some things like polling are just not so great. So what do you hear the most, and what do you see am I the norm or am I the abnorm?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. Number one, you mentioned it in passing, but I think it's a really important point, is the power of AI in flattening the feature curve and making everything accessible. That's kind of the core tenet of our AI companion product, which is built into Zoom Workplace as sort of the central tenet of being able to grab skills from all different parts of the client and surface them directly in and make it accessible. So we help you accomplish the task, and you just think about what is my outcome, and we help you get all the steps that are required to get to that outcome. By the same token, what I would say is in the video production side of the house, this is why we're so focused on integrating and being an open platform, because we want to be available in the tools that you're already using and not require this massive learning curve in order to bring Zoom into that experience. So as we continue to integrate, and you've seen, just this past year, the vMix integration, the Ecamm Live integration, these are tools that people are already using. Now Zoom is directly available inside of them, and the workflow is absolutely seamless. They don't have to think about Zoom differently than just adding a camera that's on site, right? It's the same experience.
And it really is something that scales. What's really interesting is there's the one end of kind of the bleeding edge that I work with Andy a lot on, which is the Unreal Engine. I'm doing a two-way high speed connection so all over the hallway. All of those things. But my wife runs Zoom meetings for a meditation center, and she runs it on vanilla Zoom. No extra features, and there's nothing extra that she's doing with it. She carried that meditation center, which is a very large one in Northern California, probably the largest one in Northern California, carried it all the way through COVID on Zoom. Just doing Zoom events for people that I'd walk over and I'd be like, it froze. And I'm like, no, they're just meditating. They're just,
that breathing space.
Yeah. So they're, but it doesn't, for her, she knows everything about every setting and every, I just go, I got Zoom ISO or thing, whatever, but she's knows all little bits and pieces, and they're generating revenue. They're serving their community with that without any extra pieces in it. So while we talk about those things and I get excited about them, the bare utility of Zoom on a day-to-day basis is very high too.
And we are so intentional about that, by the way. It starts with simple things like pinning and spotlighting inside of Zoom. Then you grow from that. And, wait, how do I get that on YouTube? Okay, well, there's the streaming app in the marketplace. You go past that, and now you want to be doing something that's more broadcast focused. How do I bring that into my switcher, right? We have tools for that. All the way up to now it scales with you, right? Now you're doing a hybrid event with thousands of people and, loading tiles in Unreal Engine. It just scales all the way up. But all the features are symmetrical with each other, whether it's Production Studio from our Zoom Events platform, whether it's spotlighting in Zoom, whether it's just using our new Zoom Workplace to do a multi-speaker layout with a custom background and a semi-transparent virtual composition, right? All these things are symmetrical, using the same language, same toolkit, all the same platform.
Yeah, no, I give you a hard time, but compared to your competition, it's
well, you're very kind.
It's leagues above, and some of your competition has a pretty compelling price point, as in zero. But I'd love to hear from the audience, especially those of you that have had a lot of experience. You're never going to find more Zoom knowledge and more events knowledge and production knowledge than you are right now. Any questions?
See, I ruined it earlier. I said, I don't like when,
hey, how dare you?
I gotta do it, but we're here. There's only a handful of you.
Says he hates questions, right?
I
you already know, you already know tomorrow's announcement. You're going to tell us what's going to happen at Zoomtopia this year?
Oh my gosh. Zoomtopia is going to be amazing, and that's all I'm going to say for now, but it's going to be an absolutely incredible experience. Building on, and again, we use it as kind of our flagship, like we used Unreal Engine last year to build our main stage, and now we're making that available to everybody as well. Tiles was used at Zoomtopia for our hybrid breakout theaters, an alpha version of that, and now we're making that available as well. Third-party SDK integrations piloted there, rolled out as well. So it's a great opportunity for us to give our guidance for the year on production techniques.
So I think the takeaway is we are just about out of time, and I know I'll Shanghai them into sticking around for 5 minutes, but I think the takeaway is that creators, you've seen, who knows what, actually TikTok will be here tomorrow, and you're not allowed to ask them any questions, by the way, and they will not be broadcast, but the point is platforms will come and platforms will go, and distribution channels will come and go, and community does pervade. And I think, I don't know how the rest of you feel, like sort of mushy-gushy about your pandemic time with Zoom, but to explore some of the features that help you grow with the platform. Like you said, it's kind of the Othello thing, lifetime to master. They're all there. You don't have to do them all at once, but like, we try and add one. Alex, you've been on my show, and I remember he said, I'll call you afterwards and tell you everything that's wrong. It's hard. Go ahead, Ben. Oh, I'm going to go down the steps.
As a broadcaster, I've lost my hearing.
If you're a broadcaster and want to use Zoom, or do you guys have higher resolutions, or how does it talk about that if you don't mind?
Yeah, we have a couple different things there. So our platform goes up to 1080p. So that's available for business customers. So you can turn that on with support request 720p otherwise. And that is an integration that works both within Zoom as well as everybody who integrates with Zoom. They get to kind of piggyback off of that. We have a high bandwidth technology that allows us to get multiple concurrent HD feeds into integrations, which is super powerful. And it is kind of the essential piece of our platform that makes it viable to use with all these integrations in the broadcast space. And we take it super seriously. I know
what I was going to say is, when he says high bandwidth mode, our standard system is set up for pulling 16 1080p feeds out of Zoom. That's the standard. And our max has been about 24.
Yep.
We're at 24 feeds coming out of Zoom, and and these are 3 Mac Minis pulling 24 feeds. It's 8. So a Mac Mini, M1 Mac Mini with a quad card will take 8 1080p streams out and deliver them to our switcher. And it's about 55% CPU capacity. And that's that's a $600 little box.
500 now, yeah.
$500. The Black Magic card is more expensive than the actual computer.
Sure.
But being able to take that, again, as someone who's been doing this for a long time, being able to have a bunch of remote folks and just grab them and just take all of them out and put them into my traditional pipeline, pretty powerful.
Watch the coverage today that they were doing from the booth. Those PTZ cameras at the booth looked incredible in the live stream, even going through our infrastructure in the Pro AV Zoom room. So it's really, really exciting.
Full frame sensors into Zoom. I recommend.
Okay, so there's a whole generation brought up on video that think their phones are just fine enough. Do you think that's going to change as they mature and want more resolution and want better audio quality? Or is
it sacrilege to say I kind of agree with them? The phones are better than ever now. It's just absolutely astounding. It's not the same as a broadcast camera, but then again, not every situation warrants that kind of setup. The serendipity, right, of being able to bring video in the moment where it's available with something that's in your pocket. Are you kidding? That's incredible, right? And then the ability to then connect that with sub 250 millisecond connection to anywhere in the world. That is a moment that we're living in right now that is just absolutely astounding.
Yeah, I found myself taking an SLR out and shooting a couple photos and then going, I'm not going to have any GPS information. I'm not going to have this thing, or I have to rig all this stuff up. And if I'm jumping into a Zoom, a lot of times I'm out, I want to show somebody something, or I want to show a group like, hey, I'm here. We do a thing where while we're covering the event, a lot of times we jump into so office hours happens 2 hours a day. And then we have after hours, which happens the other 22 hours a day. and they're all just hanging out. Like people just hang out in Zoom and it's like the most geeky water cooler ever. Where a lot of times, and I know this will sound very odd, but you'll go in there and there'll be 20 screens that are all empty. I mean, they're all just turned off, and someone will say, "Hey, I'm trying to test my mic, or I'm trying to test something," and suddenly see little windows start popping up, and they're like, "Okay," and then they all start working with you on it, and they kind of fiddle around, and they're like, you might want to move your camera down, you got a little too much headroom, and the light's there. Are you using Ethernet or are you using wireless? Because you got to get rid of that wireless stuff. You got to get the Ethernet in there. So you get a bunch of conversations that happen there, and then the person finishes, and then all the little things turn off again. But there are people, there's 20 people from around the world half the time in there, 10 to 20 people that they just leave it on. And it's just sitting there. And I think that what that does is it restores some of what we keep on talking about losing when we're in these remote work from home and everything else, is you don't feel like you're connected. And this is a very casual, you can just walk in and start having that conversation. And so I think that that's what it allows for. And I have to admit, as someone who used to pay for that, I'm always like, leaving connections open all the time. It's a crazy thing. I mean, what I'm saying is that I can't believe that we're able to do that. Like, I can't believe I can just leave the videos open.
You are not going to be the spokesperson for sustainability. And
I'm burning those bits up.
The thing that drives me, I mean, we had end Zoom calls and I find them on 2 days later. They're still there.
We forgive you.
Crushing. But yes. So we are out of time. We resume here at 9 o'clock tomorrow, 10 o'clock tomorrow. 10 o'clock tomorrow with a full day of creators, everything from legal to talent agents to creators themselves to things you should be thinking about, whether you're a professional broadcaster, a creator, a corporation looking to work with creators, or anything in between. So thank you. Enjoy your evening. And can we hear it for these guys who are master? Thank you. Thank you.